Hello lovelies, it's Jenny from the ScrapFx design team for April 2021. Today I've got a lovely mixed media page in my art journal using the new releases for April. So here I'm just painting down some paint for my background. I've selected a colour scheme and I'm just sort of slapping that paint down, not really thinking about the method that I'm putting that down, just putting little blotches of paint down to get a good coverage on my page. And I'm working in odd numbers, so 5 blobs of green and 5 blobs of pink and 5 blobs of the icy pink there as well. And I just sort of continue in the background until I've got my page covered with the colour scheme that I've picked. I think that that grey is a real nice contrast with the tealy greens and those pink tones. Trying not to fall in love with that background at the moment. So just going back over, and some of those paints are a little bit translucent, so I'm just giving them a second coat. Now this is a ScrapFx design paper, the rice papers. This one's called Pink Sweetheart, and I'm just tearing little pieces of that up and I'm going to collage that down. I'm using a silicone brush here with some matte medium gel, and I find that's a really good way to get good adhesion with that rice paper without getting any air bubbles or creases. So I've really found that the silicone brush has been good for that. So I'm just placing little random pieces of the torn up rice paper across my page and then drying that off so that I can start stamping. So this little stamp set again is ScrapFx called Zebra Circles, and I'm just stamping with some archival in a similar colour to the green. And this is a new release stamp. This one is called 9 Dot Stamp, and again round and round stamp, this little one here, and I've used some grey archival there. And truly my love at this month is this little seaweed stamp set. It's quite a botanical sort of looking stamp, and I'm stamping that with some white ink here just around the edges of the art journal page. And I just love this stamp set. It is so cute. So the white ink takes a little while to dry, so I'm just making sure that that's nice and dry. And then I've gone back over with my white Posca pen just where it didn't stamp as well as I'd like. Just tracing over those lines just to brighten up the stamped area. So I'm now going over those charcoal areas, the dark grey areas of my paint, and I'm doing some mark making with the white Posca pen. And that really gives the background quite a pop. Starting to look a little bit more illustrative, and I really like the look of this, the way this page is going at the moment. So just adding the final touches of those white mark making on the charcoal, and now I'm just tracing over the 9 dot stamp and with a red Posca pen there. Back over again, making some more mark making in the green areas with a teal Posca pen. So just enjoying the process, not really thinking. This is kind of meditative. It's a really nice process and really makes your page your own by making your own marks on it. Again, just making sure that that paint is dry. Now these are the new release rice papers, Scribbly Faces. This is the B rice paper, and I'm just sort of auditioning them on the page, but I decide to go with the Scribbly Faces A collage, which is just the eyes. I'm using a wet paintbrush here, and I'm just wetting the rice paper and then just tearing the paper away, the excess paper, and that just gives me a rough edge so that I can collage that down onto my page, and you don't get that sort of seam line or the halo lines around the rice paper. Again, I'm using matte medium here to adhere the rice paper, and I'm using that silicone brush, which I just find superb for putting down the rice paper. It really just helps to make that rice paper nice and translucent. Again, just wetting the image down on the rice paper and then tearing the excess paper away. And then I'm going to adhere the eyes here to the second side of the page. So just making sure I've got lots of that matte medium down on the surface and then on top as well, just to get a nice adhesion to the page. Once that's dried, I'm going back over and I'm just extending my mark making that I made previously, just to embed the rice paper so that there's any sharp edges that we sort of camouflage that with the doodling over the top. Now I'm going back over with a black pen here and just basically tracing over the original scribbles and extending them out a little bit further, darkening the lines. And again, I'm just trying to embed those rice papers into the page so that it really does look like my own work on the page. Now I'm just using some Prisma colour pencils here, just highlighting the irises of the eyes. Just putting a few layers of green in. And I think that green really helps to make the eye pop from the background, because it is quite busy. Now I'm using some charcoal pencils here in skin tones. And because they are charcoal, I'm able to smudge them a little bit onto the rice paper and just get some sort of skin tone, but quite subtly onto the page. So just layering the colours around the eyes and sort of featuring the skin tones in there. Using a white gel pen here to highlight the whites of the eyes. And then back in with the charcoal pencils in those skin tones, and just sort of using a darker colour here just to put in some shadows. Now I'm using a Distress Oxide. I think this one's called Fired Brick. And I'm just making some sort of tears from the eyes just by dripping the sprays there, and I'm just helping the drippage with a wet paintbrush. So just going on to the second face here, and I'm just by banging the actual journal and encouraging those drippage, you get that sort of teardrop sort of runs across your page. I'm using a chunky Stabilo here just to do the edging on my page. This is water soluble, so just using a wet paintbrush to activate that pencil. And I'm auditioning my letters here. I've written it out on copy paper. I found a quote on Pinterest that I liked and thought was appropriate, and so I've just cut those letters out, and now I'm just sort of tracing those lines out. Again, I'm using a Stabilo chunky pencil to mark out my lines, and now I'm going back over with the Posca pens and writing in the quote, which is, "Tears are words the heart can't say." So I'm basically just writing those letters in fairly roughly, and then I'm going back over with my Posca pen and extending those letters and making them a little bit fatter. And once I'm happy with those letters, I go back in with a wet pencil, activate the green line that I made, and that dissolves that colour so that I can make it disappear basically into the background. Just going again back over the letters and thickening those up. Once I've done each line of letters, I go back over with my heat gun and make sure that that paint's nice and dry, just so I don't smudge. Again, just dissolving my mechanical line there with the Stabilo, just so that you can't see where I've put my lines in. And now I'm going back over with a fine black Posca pen, just outlining the letters so that they really pop off the page. And it's about here that I decide that I probably need the black line to be a little bit more scribbly to sort of go with the faces. So I go back over all my letters and do a bit more of a scribbly outline, just extending that black Posca pen and making that borders a little bit more loosely scribbled around each letter. And I think that really works with the page. Really makes the letters stand out. Now I'm just loosely going back around my borders and doing a very loose scribbly line as a border around the page. Again, just so it's got a bit of uniformity with all the elements on the page. Again, just highlighting around the eyes, just where the red Distress Oxide paints or sprays have been dripped, just to highlight those eyes again. And I decide to go in with a white Posca pen over my lettering, and I'm just doing a little bit of hand doodling, very similar to the little scallops from the seaweed stamp. Just I use that as inspiration to do the hand doodling through the lettering, and it just embeds the letters a little bit. Doesn't make them so stark that they're popping off the page, and they become a bit more one with the page, and that uniformity is working now. And that's basically it. I hope you enjoyed this page, get a chance to try some of these ScrapFx new products for April, and please leave me a comment and a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. See you next time.